Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of SuperFantaFi. This being a show where we talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and/or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about I'm the Evil Lord of an Intergalactic Empire, Season 1, Episode 8. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So this episode heavily revolves around specifically Liam's arbitrary measurements of being evil, an evil lord, and that's something I'd brought up previously in a couple episodes. Has been like, he hasn't really done anything necessarily evil. I mean, you're taking down pirates, you might be doing it for selfish reasons, but you're still kind of doing good, and you're restoring your territory, but you're not ruling it like a tyrant. You're just kind of letting it do whatever it does, and in fact it's prospering, and you're paying off your debts and stuff like that, which, I mean, to be fair, I think a lot of that isn't really him. That's just by proxy of he left a lot of that to Amagi, and Magi's done such an amazing job disseminating and kind of like arranging that whole situation. But yeah, he's kind of not really done the whole evil lord thing, but he's just like, and he's bringing that proclamation. Everyone's like, yeah, I want to basically pay back the debt, like, of the unrelenting life and crappy life that I lived before. But Amagi's taking it literally. She's like, no, I think before we even work on anything, we do have, yes, paying off the debt is proper. She's like, paying off the debt is important. He's like, no, not that debt. So I love, like, this entire episode just basically this misunderstanding between him, Brian, and Amagi. Brian and Amagi are on one side of things, and Liam's on another side of things. Because for him to be an evil lord means money, power, and a harem. He has the power situation because he's mastered the way of the Flash. He's like, I still got ways to go, but then like figuring out the money situation, which a guy from a company shows up and is like, oh, here's all these gold bars you wanted, which obviously they talked about it previously. Gold doesn't have the worth in this world like it does on Earth where he's from. So there's that, but it's just for him, his perception of wealth is gold. That's just because of the world he came from. But to others, it's kind of like, oh, that's weird. And obviously, he kind of wants to go like the full Scrooge McDuck thing. And I want to, not only do I want to swim in gold, I want to like bathe in gold and stuff like that. Which Brian's taking it like, oh my God, that makes so much sense, because that's going to be the most like, what's the word I'm looking for? Hygienic of like, because there won't really be like a bacterial issue, because Brian's biggest issue with some of the stuff Liam brought up was just the unhygienic angles of it, because later on he's like, oh, I'm building out this giant pool and I'm gonna fill it up with wine and we're gonna hang meat everywhere. But then Amagi and Brian bring up like the practicality of it, because for him it's like he's got his perceptions of what rich is, but it's like when you apply, like it's one thing to be like, oh, this is what it looks like, but then when you actually bring it into practicality, you're like, that doesn't make any sense. It's like, you're gonna swim in a pool of wine, like, are you gonna drink it afterwards? Because she's like, Amagi's like, I think that's unhealthy to drink wine if someone's gonna swim. He's like, no, I don't want to swim in it. He's like, well, it's not, I mean, even if it's unhealthy, like, we could put it through the water filter. But then she's like, yeah, but if you put it through the water filter, literally all the alcohol will be filtered out and it'll just be water. Are you fine with drinking water that people swim in? And Brian's like, no, we're not going to do that. Like, don't swim in water or drink water or wine or whatever. It's like, what's the point of going through all that? Then it's like, all right, do you want the meat hanging up? Do you want it cooked? Well, if it's cooked, it's going to look like a store where they're selling that. It's like, oh, well, leaving it uncooked. It's like, well, then that's going to make this place look like a butcher shop. It's like, do you want them to be like fully cooked meals? And he's like, no, I don't want that either. But it's just like, don't leave like raw meat around because that's super unsanitary. It's like, once again, that's Brian's perspective on it. So there's also the harem plan that he wants to, I want a harem of this size and stuff like that. But the problem is, like, the harem he wants initially, he's like, oh, it could be this much. He's like, he threw out a number initially, but then he was like, you know what? To be an evil lord, I need 100 women. And then Brian was like, that's too small. He's like, wait, that's too small? It's like, there is a list of like, wasn't it like 10,000 women or 100,000 women? And then they're like, Amagi was like, I was going to at least pick 1,000. He's like, 1,000, that's too much. But for Brian, it's like, because for him, it's like his biggest concern was, I thought you weren't really at the age to really be concerned about women or liking women. But then it's like, well, you've fallen into the honeypots lately. And he's like, wait, what do you mean honey traps? Like, I haven't fallen in any. He's like, well, what about Neos? Like, she seduced you and bothered. He's like, no. You got that twisted. I bought those ships from her because I felt pity for her, not because I was attracted to her. Because his biggest concern, and he's brought it up previously, Brian did, that he was worried with the only woman that was really around Liam for most of the series so far has been Amagi. And he's like, oh, like, I didn't think you had any interest in any biological women. So seeing you having any interest in Neos kind of gave me some hope, because he's like, we need you to pop out an offspring now, because you are the last line. Because if you don't like pop out a kid, your lineage ends with you, and we need to kind of get started on that. Because like, what if something happens to you, this entire like lineage will die out. I mean, his parents will still be around, but I mean, they kind of abandoned everything when they left him with the debt and bounce. So that's not really applicable. They've kind of given up their titling for this place the moment they made him lord of this place. So David brought up the whole conversation of like, he's like, oh, I want the most beautiful people on this planet. And Amagi was like, well, all the most beautiful people are here. Like, and then Liam is like, now that I think about it, a lot of the men and women that staff here are beautiful. We don't really get to see a lot of the staff. The only extra staff we ever see is Brian, because he's like the head honcho. He's like, even though Amagi's kind of more his right hand, I guess you can make it so that Brian is kind of his left hand in some capacities. But it's like, oh yeah, there's beautiful people on the staff, so you can kind of have your pick of the litter. But his whole thing is, I want a woman in my harem who like I'm not an evil lord if they all love me, because like everyone in this planet and everyone that shows up would love me. Because even Brian's like, yo, if anyone, like, because they specifically hired people to the staff, like the hiring process is like, oh, Liam might decide to touch you, so you have to be comfortable with that. And everyone's like, oh no, we're perfectly fine with that. In fact, they're incentivized like, yo, if he touches you, it's actually going to raise your rank, which is all kinds of effed up and weird. But for Liam, it's like being an evil lord means they must hate me. So I want a woman that hates me. And Amagi and Brian can't comprehend it. They're like, oh, that doesn't make any sense. Like, why would you want that? But like anyone that would typically be in this situation currently would be someone that would like him, and he doesn't want that. So it's like he's not, once again, he has his arbitrary notions of what it's supposed to be. He's basing this on like Dojin that him and Nita talked about and stuff like that. So that's where his preconceived notion of, I guess, of what being evil is. It's him taking it from fiction that he's talked about with Nita or read himself. I guess that's where a lot of these arbitrary things stem from. He did try to venture out in the city. It's like, oh, let me kind of do some boots on the ground searching for women. And he found a pretty person. He's like, oh, do you want to like go, like, I forgot what the approach was, but then he saw her having like this colorful snot bubble, and he was like, what the hell is that? And he looks around, other women are doing it too. It's become a popular trend in their territory, and he's just like, oh, that's goofy and that's stupid. And he's just kind of like, Amagi's like, oh, would you want me to do it? And he pulls it out. He's like, no, I don't want that. And he stomps on it. He's like, in fact, those are banned from our territory. I think specifically he was saying like from the mansion, but he was like, if I want to, I can get rid of it territorially as well. But the problem is, he also brings up like the swimsuits are full skin body swimsuits, which some people appreciate, but I get it. He wants something a literal skin revealing, and he's just like, why? Because they're like, oh, like the benefits of it kind of like fights like ultraviolet rays and stuff like that. It's just like, no, screw these trends. He's like, I want people to dress the way I want them to dress. He's trying to find someone that can fit, like, once again, these arbitrary mode. I mean, once again, it's just like, so interesting that he's trying to be an evil lord and he hasn't really been successful up until now. And also at the same time, his rules for what makes him an evil lord are so weird and arbitrary that it's just like, I mean, I guess some evil people would have some of those things that you're talking about, but that doesn't necessarily, it's like having all that, evil lords have all that you're talking about, and having all that doesn't make you an evil lord type of situation, and you're kind of failing at your attempt to be an evil lord. Like I said, the territory seems to be fun because you're not just randomly killing people. He's like, I want my people to suffer and stuff like that, but like they're prospering from the little bit we've seen in them. In fact, even like the one bar we go back to over and over again, we haven't been there in a couple episodes, what's the whole point of like, oh man, things are actually getting better and better in the territory, and Liam's doing such a fantastic job, At one point, because of the whole swimsuit situation and wanting to change the fashion trend, he's like, let's bring a great model here, like the best model ever. But it's like basically the amount of money that the territory makes on an annual basis would basically be the equivalency of how much it would take monetary wise to get like the best model around. I was like, wow, that's crazy. So it's like, all right, let's focus on like the fashion side of things. Well, we'll push the fashion stuff to the back burner for now. So, and the episode basically ended with him looking through all of, like, the 1,000 people like Amagi had like gathered up, because for him, he's like, yeah, I mean, I would touch all the women here, even if I could. Even if I didn't have permission, I would have extra done it. But he's like, I have a Magi, and Magi, he's like, you're kind of my. Essentially, he's like, yo, you're my perfect ideal woman, so that's why I keep you by my side and stuff like that. So, but Amagi, I'm assuming how she is in the outro, where it just kind of like we had those like dreams or whatever of hers of like being more human, and then it ended with her smiling. Like, I think we'll probably eventually get to that, but I don't think she's quite there yet to be like flattered by like his being like, you're my ideal woman. So that's where things kind of currently stand. There kind of was like really no progress made for Liam's quote unquote harem. I guess he's like 2/3 of the way there to being an evil lord, rather, but his harem plans have kind of stalled out for now to some extent. But then we catch up with Christiana. I guess it's like, that's also something I should also know. I'm glad this episode is a lot more lighthearted. It's still kind of always going to be depressing, because you're always going to remember that the Christiana storyline is so depressing like it is. But yeah, she's back. They were able to regenerate her body. Also, was that a mistranslation I saw, or was that, did I misread that? Did that say like she was stuck like that for decades? Because I'd said like at the time, I was like, I wonder if the timelines for those were off. Maybe I misread that. I could have sworn that said like decades. Maybe I was just full of shit, or maybe that's a mistranslation I was seeing or something. I don't know. I was like, wait, what? So I was like, how long was she stuck like that? Maybe it was like, maybe it wasn't decades, maybe it was like years or something like that. I don't know. Or maybe it wasn't even that. Maybe it was like months or something like that. I don't know. We don't know the time frame of how long that all transpired and how long she was stuck in that form. But we also did get an update. Like I said, there were other people in those cages, so they're being treated as well. But yeah, it took a long process, but her body's back to the way it was. But she still got a long, lengthy, and hard rehabilitation she has to go through as well. But for her, she's so happy to have her body back, because she was like stuck in that grotesque form. She's like, even if this is a dream, even if this is me in my final moment seeing this, I'm perfectly happy with that. But it's like the lady taking care of her is like, no, like this was all paid for. She's like, by who? And it's like, by Lord Liam. And then she's like, oh, that knight who showed up, he was a count. And for her, it's like, I'm indebted to him. He's practically like, he's my savior. He's kind of like my god. So she's going to join the harem. But the problem is, she's not going to be what Liam wants her to be. Because Liam wants a woman who doesn't like him. But she's going to always be indebted to you. So you've got 3 women in your life. Amagi, who serve you wholeheartedly. Whatever you want, she'll give you. But I mean, you won't get the woman that doesn't serve you, who it doesn't like you, angle from her. Nias will do anything to kind of keep you satisfied. So, which kind of bothers you to some extent, because you're like, well, it's not what you want, but also it's just too much of that's going to strike a chord with your ex and everything. And then like Christiana will be like, devoted you wholeheartedly. Maybe you could convince her, like, because I'm your savior, I'm gonna ask you to do some stuff, and she'll play into it. Maybe not. We'll see how things kind of roll on that front when we kind of pick up with her again. So, but beyond these 3, they're the only really ones outside of like the people who work in the mansion and the AI maids that are populating the mansion and stuff like that. So yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting to see where the next episode ends up taking us going forward with all of this, because I think the episode title was in reference to like mass-produced maids and stuff, so maybe we'll lean into that a little bit more, because if I remember correctly, they're the ones that were mainly staffing the ships at the beginning of the series, when we got that opening that was set in place, like, well, it's really the future, because that hasn't happened yet, but, you know, relatively speaking, present day. Oh yeah, there was also like the guy who got him all the gold and stuff. He let that guy borrow like 100 ships and of their newer ships, just so he's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna be doing some dealings in some very not so great territories, safety wise. So pirates, you know, are concerned and such. So yeah, we'll see if anything comes of that storyline either. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens next. really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.